As Lori mentioned, my name is Amanda Taintor. I am the faculty coordinator of instructional design at Reedley College. We are going to be doing a series of AI workshops as well as universal design for learning workshops to help address for the UDL part, the new Title V requirements to have that on your curriculum outline of record. But come to those later in the semester and we'll talk about that. So for today, we're going to be looking at basically getting to your AI why, and this is going to be the first part of a two-part workshop. So we're glad you're here, but I'm going to have a little bit of a disclaimer in just a second, which might help, not help, might cause some of you to say, maybe this isn't where I want to be this morning or this afternoon. Um, the first disclaimer that I'll have is this isn't a how-to workshop. So a lot of people are looking for, okay, how to integrate AI into my teaching? What are some different tools to do it? I really want to level set and make sure everybody understands it's not the purpose of this workshop. I love doing those workshops. I think there is a lot of really neat integration possibilities and usefulness for AI in our teaching, but that's not the purpose of this workshop. So if that's what you're here to get, absolutely there might be a better use of your time. But what we're going to talk about today is that we're going to look more deeply into what our teaching values are, what our teaching identity is, and really get to the why of those values to help us understand what AI can function as it in our classrooms and why we don't like it and how that might be contradictory to the values and where that rub is coming from. So that's the first level set. The second level set is that we are going to be doing some reflection and discussion in this workshop. And Lori's heard me say this before. I hate those types of webinars. If somebody says we're going to be going into breakout rooms, the first thing I do is hit leave because I don't go to webinars to do that. I hate it. Literally, I will leave immediately. So I'm 100% not offended if that drops down and 10 of you leave, but I do want everybody to understand that is the expectation of the workshop today. We are going to be going into breakout rooms, 2 to 3, probably three to four, to have that conversation, to reflect and discuss. So I don't want it to be awkward at that time. If that is not what you're here for, then it is not offensive to go ahead and leave. But I like to be able to level set it because I click leave immediately when someone says breakout room. I'm gone. That's not what I'm here for. So I like to be able to let everybody know. But what we're going to do in addition to that is we're going to shift from that how-to of AI tools and explore that deeper why. As I've been putting together these workshops, it's been valuable to me as an educator to take a step back and think about those whys of AI versus just jumping into what are some neat tools I can use. We'll start at the end to articulating our stance. We're going to do that much more in the part 2, but we'll get there towards the end of looking more clearly at how we truly feel about the application of AI in our specific discipline in a specific class. So we're going to get really granular because we need to look at it at that level. We are going to recognize and start with the mindset that meaningful AI integration, it doesn't start with the technology, but it's going to start with our teaching values. So that's the framework we're going to approach the entire presentation. So it's going to be really valuable every time we stop and I say reflect or journal or write down to do those types of tasks. Because if you're not wasting, if you're using your time to be here today, then it's going to be beneficial to do those activities just like we would want our students to do. All right. So why do we reflect on AI? What was the whole purpose of this workshop series that we're doing, this part 1 and this 2? We have to ask why are we having this conversation about AI in higher education? And as soon as we start, whatever comes into your mind, like just ask yourself, why are we having this conversation about AI in higher education? Most of your brains are going, because it's a problem, because it's an issue, because my students are cheating, whatever it might be. We are recognizing this is something that is in higher education. We're not at the point, even in the disciplines we wouldn't have thought of 2 years ago, where we can ignore that AI is a part of our educational experience as educators, as our students' educational experience. So we're having this conversation because it is in our classrooms, and so we really need to bring it to the forefront and have that conversation around it. But we have to acknowledge that this is an AI revolution. We can't think of it, or we shouldn't be just thinking of AI as just a tool. It is undeniable that it is creating some unprecedented opportunities, both for people, for educators, but also for students. It can function as a 24/7 teaching assistant available whenever students need help. Now, again, we're gonna talk about whether you agree with it if it should or it shouldn't, but what we're stating right now is these are the things that it can do. So we'll get to the should and the shouldn't for you discipline in just a second. So reserve those statements or at least keep them in your head for right now. But what it also can do is it does provide the personalized immediate feedback on drafts and assignments at scales. This is something that it's capable of doing. It can create adaptive learning pathways that respond to individual student needs. It can do that. It can enhance support for my multilingual learners navigating language barriers. Absolutely. This is what it can do. And it can create scalable one-on-one tutoring experiences that were previously not possible in large classes. So these are things that AI is here, it can do. It shouldn't be something that we're arguing about. They can do these things. We are going to talk about for your class if you feel it should or not. So that's where our discussion is heading. But here are the challenges that many of us are wrestling through and the issues that are coming up when we think about the integration of AI, the limitations and the risks. We do know that because AI was trained on people's information and people's information is highly charged with inequities and bias, that what is produced out of a lot of AI is a systemic bias that can perpetuate inequity if we don't apply our human brain to take a look at it. We do know that it is very confident about misinformation. It will lie to you with the confidence of a toddler. It is amazing how confident it is when it is wrong. Hallucinations are less frequent, where it just makes stuff up out of the black box, but it will tell you wrong information with utmost confidence, saying, yes, this is from this sources. I looked it up, and it's not actually. And so we do see that that is not something that happens. A significant challenge is a student over-reliance hindering cognitive development. We know the research that is there. We know this is an issue. A lot of us are concerned about it, so we know it's a challenge. We also know that there's a lot of academic integrity concerns that are challenging our traditional assessments. It's such an easy tool to use that it is something that is creeping into every assessment that we do. So the big question, or multiple big questions we're going to wrestle with today is how does AI align with or challenge the core teaching values that guide your classroom decisions? We're operating today in this workshop from a personal values perspective. This is really going to be about you looking at your core teaching values, your personal approach, not about what your department thinks, not about what your institution thinks. We're going to need to bring that um, into our teaching, but we're really focusing on those personal core values. They are shaped by our field. An English instructor might look at AI very differently than an ag instructor or a child development instructor. So that's going to shape our values just by the nature of the discipline that we're in, the type of students that we are working with, the institutional context. It might make a difference if you're coming from an R1 university. We're not, we're at a California community college. But if you were, that could possibly shape your context. If you're at a university overseas, both of my children go to colleges in the UK, and every single educational approach for AI is very different than any conversation that we've had here. And most importantly, we're going to look at those deeply held beliefs about teaching and learning and what they should be. That is what this is going to be about. Any questions or concerns right now? It's going to get even deeper, so you might want to reserve those, but at anything currently. And there's like a 90% chance I'm going to run out of time again. I halved this presentation, but it's a strong possibility, Lori, so I'm apologizing in advance. I tried to work on it. So what the Stanford Artificial Intelligence Teaching Guide talks about is that teaching with AI starts with teaching about AI. None of us have I shouldn't say none of us. I'm not looking at who is in here, but most likely none of us have AI as part of our student learning outcomes. None of us have AI as our curriculum outline on our outline of record. But when we're going to use AI in our teaching or anti-teaching, then it's going to be a part of what we do teach our students. Even if it's just one module, even if it's one conversation, we do need to have at least a rudimentary understanding of what AI is and what it isn't before we start approaching it in our educational context in our discipline and in that course, just to understand those basics. We need to be able to model what thoughtful AI engagement is if we're choosing to use it or if we're not choosing to use it, and be transparent in our own teaching when appropriate of when we're using so that we can demonstrate what those limitations are and we can demonstrate reflective practice. If we're asking students to reflect on whether it's an appropriate AI use for the assessment, we need to be able to do the same thing in our own teaching. This is what that AI literacy and critical thinking is all about. We have to think about it critically in our own pedagogical application, just like we're asking our students to think about it critically in the application of their learning in our discipline. All right, so here's our first reflection prompt, and you're going to get out of this what you put into it. So I highly recommend you taking I forget how much time I designated to do this, minute, 2 minutes. I think the next one we actually have time to do this. So I want you to write down your top 2 to 3 teaching values. Some of us in our master's program or some of our educational experiences, we had to go through our teaching philosophy. I'm not asking you to write a teaching philosophy. I'm asking you to think about what your top 2 to 3 teaching values are and try to be specific about what that means in your practice. We're going to look at these in a little bit more depth, and it's going to guide some of the later questions we're going to go through. So, some of those teaching values, because I know that can be a subjective thing to define, it might include that rigor is very important to you. That's a big thing. That collaboration in your courses are very important to you. That real world application is an important value. That student agency is an important value to you. Intellectual courage, disciplinary authenticity, creativity. So think about those core values, and I'm gonna give you a minute and a half to think very deeply about these teaching values. Longer than that, and you'll get off task. So hopefully you've written those values down, stored them in your head, however you want to be able to do that, because we're going to revisit them as we go forward in this workshop. So why is that important? Why did we start out, well, 20 minutes in, talking about our pedagogical values? Because whether or not we acknowledge it or realizing it, those pedagogical values are going to shape most, if not all, of those teaching decisions that you make in your classroom. Those daily choices, they guide our decisions about what kind of assignments we have, what kind of assessments we have, what kind of classroom discussions, if we have classroom discussions, how we organize those classroom discussions, and the participation structure, whether we have robust requirements for participation, whether we have no participation, whether we don't think that's a valuable part. That's going to be shaped by our values. How we approach the feedback we give to our students. It responds if we don't provide robust feedback, if we provide very little feedback, if we only provide feedback for what they did right, if we only provide feedback for what they did wrong, if we have peers give feedback, all shaped for our core values that we talked about. Um, and it's the why behind the what. So these aren't abstract ideals. Again, these values are really what's going to shape those decisions. In our teaching mind, it's those things that guide those decisions, whether we know it or not. The word is escaping to me. I was hope it was going to come to me. Making these values explicit. So this process of thinking about them and causing ourselves to do that metacognition and think about what we introspection and think about what those values are, it's going to get you one step closer to deciding what I truly feel about how AI should be used in my classroom and to use it in an intentional way. All right. So here's the AI's dual potential. When we start implementing AI in our classroom, or even think about implementing AI in our classroom, we have a couple of two different directions that we tend to go. It can either be that the AI challenges our values. It risks that authenticity, it alters our assessment process, and it obscures our authorship. Those are definitely things that AI can do to our values. But AI can also support our values. So AI can enhance accessibility. It can offer adaptive feedback. It can scaffold learning. So if those are parts of our values, then those are things that maybe we'll start thinking about how AI can help support those values. Whether or not we choose to use AI in our classroom, it should be values driven, not technology driven. I think this is what's happened with the rapid evolution of AI. Every single day, it seems like I get some sort of new notification of a new AI tools. There are thousands of things out there. When somebody asks me, can I find an AI to generate an image? You can find dozens, if not hundreds of AIs that can generate an image, that can generate your voice, that can generate a realistic picture, a realistic video. AI can do basically almost anything that you want to do. So that's why now that we know, okay, it can do everything, it's stepping back and looking and making sure that it's values image. It's not what can AI do, it's what do I value in student learning? And then you're trying to decide, does AI serve that value? How can I make AI serve whatever those values are? It keeps you in control and it makes that technology, whether or not it's AI, I'll say this about any technology, even pre-AI, that technology should be a tool for your teaching philosophy, not the driver. Okay, so now we're going to do 1 minute of personal reflection. I know we did it in our doing our values, but we're going to do some personal reflection. And I think it's on the next slide. Okay. So I want you to personally reflect on this. You can write it down. We're not going to, I have 5 minutes down, but I want to make sure that we have adequate time in the breakout rooms to discuss because that was kind of truncated the last time. So it might be more like 4 minutes that I'm going to have you do this on a personal level. And I know for me, the temptation always is to clip this time because it's awkward silence and I like to talk over awkward silence, but we're going to have 4 minutes of awkward silence. And this is what I want you to do because it's going to be important to set this up in our before we go into our breakout rooms. So I want you to think about the impact on your learning outcomes. Consider how AI tools might affect the specific learning outcomes you've designed for your course. Does AI enhance students' ability to achieve these outcomes, or does it potentially short circuit the learning process you've carefully constructed? Think about both the cognitive and the skills-based outcomes in your field. I want you to think about the opportunities for enhancement. Identify concrete opportunities where AI could genuinely enhance student engagement, deepen understanding, provide targeted support, or enable learning experiences that weren't previously possible in your discipline. Try to be specific. What assignments, what type of feedback, what student populations? And think about the risk and the conflicts. Recognize potential risks or fundamental conflicts between AI capabilities and your teaching goals. Where might AI undermine the cognitive work, creative struggle, or authentic practice essential to your field? What aspects of learning in your discipline require human limitation, error, or effort?
Okay, that was about 4 minutes.
Thanks, Lori. All right. So now I'm going to put you in to your peer discussion breakouts, and I'm going to randomly assign you. The goal is that you're not with somebody from your discipline. And we've got a pretty good smattering for at least for the Readly faculty that I know that are here. So I'm going to create and assign you automatically to go into those breakout rooms. And what I want you to do in those breakout rooms is share your reflections, share your thoughts on where AI aligns with or creates tension against your teaching philosophy. Try and be specific. I get sharing is difficult to do, but it's really valuable to be able to share that from our discipline specifics. We're coming at this in a non-judgmental space. So if someone hates AI and you love it, don't sit there and let your face show your emotion. You know those memes, smile, pretend if you hate it. But this is not going to be be that judgment area. We're letting everybody talk about their diverse perspective. But what I do want you to do is internally notice if you have strong reactions. That more than anything else is really going to identify if you missed when you self-assess those strong values. If you go, oh, that's a stupid thing to do, then you should recognize that and understand that is one of your values that's speaking to you based on what somebody else shared and what they would do. Your push against that internally is letting you know this is what one of my values are. We want to share real examples of AI resistance in your discipline. Has it worked? What concerns you? This is a great opportunity to share across the discipline. So I'm going to send you into those groups and we're going to spend about 10 minutes. All right, so that was your opportunity to share out, and we're a small group. Now there's only 13 of us, so I'd love to hear any of your insights. If you had any themes that emerged across your group, tensions or conflicts, and then we'll talk about collaboratively, collectively across all of ours. Where did we see that happening? So if anybody wants to share about what they talked about in their group, personal insights, it's really unstructured this part of it.
I'd like to share it for us in counseling. For our students, we do expect that they will be developing their critical thinking skills and that they will be participating in a lot of self-reflection. And so that's the concern, is that for those of us that are teaching, we have noticed a reliance on AI for that. And so that being said, if that's the case for some of the students and they're really not meeting the slows of the course, right? And so we're concerned about the long-term consequences of that. But on the other hand, AI has also been very helpful when students are working on projects or presentations, because they're able to utilize it to produce much more professional products. So that's been the positive side of it. But again, we're just concerned about the skills and even their writing skills, because although we're not English instructors, we are preparing them for being able to answer questions properly, and that sort of thing. So for us, that's the concern, is what happens when it catches up to them, right?
Amanda, do you think that in the very near future, like in the next year or two, that we will have a course on using AI for students?
For students, yeah, I think so. The question
There,
becomes whether that can be a forced enrollment or not.
there,
I
there is a course. Stephanie has a course on using AI for students. It's dealing with research. There are some CCCs that are already doing this. Yeah, there are some that are actually creating AA degrees with AI, but I know we have, I think, at least two that have gone through curriculum through library.
Yeah, I think at the very least, what would be nice to do is if there was some module about just academic integrity and just kind of level setting all about AI. Both my girls have had, when they started at their universities, a quick 1 hour module that they had to go through as part of starting, that talked about just the basics of AI and yielded to each instructor and professor how they used it. So my hope is, at the very least, we could get to that place. So that's really a non-answer, Jim. But Stephanie's course, it is there, and maybe we can figure out a way to get that module pushed into courses. I don't know. It's all worth the discussion, and definitely something I think maybe Academic Senate can consider if we want that to be one of the things that's pushed into all courses. Um, it's just finding common ground. And one of the purposes of this entire workshop is, what is our common ground on AI, you know? All right. And go ahead, Jim.
But I say the other thing that probably for all of us is true is, how do we use AI in my course? So when I look at my course, every single problem, everything I do in that course can be done by AI and done well. And so for a completely online course, I have no idea who's doing any of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is, my online courses have better grades than my in-person classes. Something's wrong with that.
Yep. Yeah, and that is, and I've heard that from many math instructors and like higher computational things, is that's one of the things that we know AI does very well now. I mean, it's not even a question. It does advanced computations and any kind of mathematical computations well. So I don't envy the position you're in, Jim. That's a hard thing to wrestle through. And then wrestling through is your own values. Okay, so what is it they need to know how to do if they're moving on to math? If we know, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, I'm sure you're thinking this. If we know AI can do this and can do it forevermore, what is it that students do need to know how to do? I'm sure English instructors are going to the same thing, is if AI can write an essay, do students need to know how to write an essay? And that's the whole thing we have to wrestle through in academia now.
And just say that this is not a new argument. When the calculator first came out, it was considered cheating using the calculator. Even to do some very advanced kinds of statistical things, it was considered cheating. And some teachers, even today, make their students go through these giant calculations. I don't think that's right. They should be using the calculator. And I do think there should be some AI in this also. They should learn how to use it because it is a skill that they are going to have in the future. So how do we model that for them and still have them learn the material in my class? Or do we say that statistics or math is not important, and that might be what we end up with?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something you have to wrestle with, your discipline has to wrestle with. Like that's the hard part of where we're at. Thankfully, AI can't change diapers yet, so I'm safe in my infant toddler class. Y'all can switch to us if you want. Who knew that everybody would want to be an ECE, huh? So the big thing is we only have a couple of minutes because I think we end at 150, right, Lori? That's what my thing said.
Yeah, and we
Where do you stand? It's a smaller group, so I'm not saying maybe having the discussions that you did in your group. Oh, go ahead, Antoinette. Keeping in mind that you're going to cut off the last of my presentation.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think we can't really say as like for me, I'm mixed bag. Some of my classes, depending on the class itself, I do use AI with guardrails with my students. I'm actively with them, giving them the support that they need so they can properly use it. But my stats class, oh heck no. This is something that I want them to actually be able to demonstrate that they can logically follow directions. So for me, that is a no AI. I think it really depends on the subject matter. It's not a hard no AI or yes AI. It really depends.
Well, and I'm gonna zoom in on something that you said because I think it's important. You said it's not, you didn't say this, but what I'm looking at is you didn't say they need to know the statistical analysis. You said they need to know how to follow those complex directions. And so those are things that to me we're having to wrestle through is they have to know how to follow complex directions. Maybe it's not the statistical analysis, but critically thinking about how I do a step one that'll lead to a step two, that'll lead to a step three, that'll lead to a step four. And can they get there without doing a complex statistical analysis and having AI do a complex statistical analysis? I mean, I, those are things you all have to wrestle through, and I'm sure it's super hard. All right, so I want to make sure and actually finish the workshop. So we thought through what your core values are, and hopefully even through the context of thinking about this and forcing yourself to spend time on it, maybe those changed, maybe those tweaks. Now maybe you're even more freaked out and this was not helpful. It just made you have a crisis and you're going to go back to school and do something else. But we're thinking through what our initial reactions are. What is it in our discipline? Math might be totally different than ECE, might be totally different than counseling, but there are things that we're sharing that are difficult for all of us across those disciplines. What we've accomplished today, and I'm super excited that I think we're actually going to finish it. Oh, we're at time right now. I can talk real fast. We've looked beyond what AI is a technical tool, what its uses are in our discipline, how we feel about it. We've reflected deeply. I hope you reflected deeply on your pedagogical priorities. You heard from diverse perspectives. Ideally, we would have had a bigger group and we'd had more diverse perspectives, but I hope it gave you a dialoguing opportunity. And we're going to begin articulating how the AI aligns with your teaching philosophy. So what part two is going to do is we're going to start taking those values and articulate them into our AI policies that we can communicate. So just like I was picking on poor Antoinette, how do you communicate to students within your policy that understanding the ability to do, I forget what it was now, steps, it was a much more brilliant way to put it, is important. So how do we articulate that in our policies to students of why we're not letting them use AI? Looking at some assignments that align with those policies. So your homework, continue reflecting on those things, where you want to start experimenting with AI, where it's going to be appropriate in alignment with your teaching values, where you think I will intentionally exclude it, and the why.